She won't suspect a thing, darling. Not until it's too late. Marcus Albright's voice, usually booming with boardroom authority, was a low, conspiratorial murmur. His fingers traced the bare skin of Felicity Shaw's arm as they stood by the panoramic window of his private executive lounge, the city lights twinkling beneath them like complicit eyes. Her laugh, a soft, purring sound. That laugh, those words, sent a shiver down my spine. A shiver I hadn't felt, of course, because I, Alexandra Thorne, was not meant to be there, lurking just outside the partially open mahogany doors of Marcus Albright's private executive lounge. Yet, as I approached what was usually my quiet sanctuary before the corporate day erupted, the insidious cold of their betrayal, the calculated ruthlessness of their plan, seemed to seep through the very walls of Ascendant Holdings, chilling me to the bone even before I walked into that room. At 51, after 23 years as the strategic architect of Ascendant Holdings, I believed I had seen every corporate maneuver, every backroom deal. But this felt different. This felt personal. This felt like a carefully laid trap, sprung by the very people I had dedicated my life to. Are you sure about this, Marcus? Felicity's voice, though outwardly concerned, held an undercurrent of barely contained excitement. Alexandra is formidable. She knows everything about this company. What if she fights back? Marcus chuckled, a dry, dismissive sound. Alexandra's a dinosaur, my dear. Brilliant, yes, but predictable. She lives by logic and loyalty. She'll never see this coming. His grip on her arm tightened slightly. Besides, darling, you're more than capable. Who better to lead our new division of global integration and take over her role as Executive Vice President of Corporate Strategy? Felicity leaned into him, her smile widening. As you wish, my love. Just make sure the transition is seamless. No messy loose ends. Precisely, Marcus affirmed, a shadow of ruthlessness crossing his features. She'll be given a generous package, of course. $410,000 plus full benefits for 20 months. More than enough to buy her silence. Her system access will be terminated at 5 p.m. today. It will be clean. Their voices, though distant, felt chillingly close, their words echoing with a predatory certainty, confirming every horrifying detail I had just inadvertently witnessed. I straightened my shoulders, taking a deep, shaky breath, and then, with a resolve forged in betrayal, I walked directly to Marcus Albright's opulent office door and knocked. And then, the scene shifted. The cool, detached reality of Marcus Albright's opulent office, where I found myself standing moments later, waiting for the axe to fall. The air, usually charged with the hum of innovation, was thick with unspoken tension. Marcus sat rigid behind his vast antique desk, his eyes avoiding mine, a telltale sign of guilt masked by authority. Beside him, poised with that same unnerving, too-perfect smile, sat Felicity Shaw, my declared successor, now revealed as the reason for my downfall. In her early 30s, with an air of cultivated elegance, she exuded a confidence that was less about competence and more about cunning, a confidence clearly fueled by the man beside her. Alexandra, please come in. Have a seat. Marcus's voice was a flat, emotionless drone, betraying no hint of the conversation I had just overheard. I moved to the high-backed leather chair, every fiber of my being screaming at the hypocrisy. I'd faced down market downturns, navigated complex corporate espionage, and brokered deals worth hundreds of billions of dollars. Yet this quiet room felt like the most treacherous ground I had ever trod. Marcus, I began, my voice steady, though my senses were screaming. What's the agenda today? Are we discussing the upcoming quarterly report? My team just finalized the projected growth, and we're looking at a 2.5% increase in market share. exceeding even our most optimistic forecasts. I knew it was futile, a last, desperate attempt to appeal to the strategist he once respected, before the lover consumed him. Marcus cleared his throat, his gaze fixed somewhere over my shoulder, preparing for the inevitable. Alexandra, your contributions to Ascendant have been foundational, truly invaluable over the years. His hand instinctively brushed Felicity's arm, a fleeting, intimate gesture that confirmed my worst fears, igniting a cold fire of indignation within me. This is Felicity Shaw. As you know, she's being brought in to lead our new division of global integration. I nodded, maintaining a neutral expression, though a cold fury was starting to ignite within me. Yes, I'm aware. We've exchanged a couple of preliminary emails. Emails that screamed of her absolute unsuitability, and now, the sickening realization of why she was here. How can I facilitate her transition into our strategic framework? Actually, Alexandra? Felicity interjected, her voice dripping with triumph, a smirk playing on her lips. Her eyes briefly met Marcus's, a fleeting moment of shared conspiracy, an ugly confirmation that twisted the knife in my gut. Mr. Albright believes your extensive experience makes you the ideal person to provide comprehensive transitional guidance. I will be taking over as Executive Vice President of Corporate Strategy, and your current responsibilities will be fully absorbed by my division. My breath caught, a raw, sharp intake. My role? The strategic heart of Ascendant, the very pulse I had nurtured and developed for 17 years? The pieces were now falling into place with a sickening thud. The blatant lack of qualification, the hushed rumors, Marcus's sudden disinterest in performance. It was all for her. I turned sharply to Marcus, my eyes boring into his, demanding an answer he wouldn't dare voice, but which I already knew. My role? Marcus, with all due respect, I've built that department from the ground up. The strategic blueprints, the proprietary analytical models, the crisis mitigation protocols, they are all deeply intertwined with my expertise. What exactly is Felicity's track record in corporate strategy for a global conglomerate of our scale? I've searched for her name in industry publications, academic journals. I find no substantial experience relevant to this level of strategic oversight. Unless, of course, favors are now a recognized qualification. Felicity's perfect smile finally fractured, her eyes hardening, a brief, almost imperceptible flash of genuine fury. Marcus, however, looked utterly defeated, his shoulders slumping slightly, but his gaze remained fixed, resolute. Alexandra, the decision has been finalized. His voice was a flat, cold line. Your access to all company systems will be terminated at 5 p.m. today. We expect your full cooperation in ensuring a smooth transition of your knowledge and responsibilities to Felicity by then. My world, meticulously constructed brick by brick over decades, seemed to shatter into countless shards. The comprehensive separation package was nothing more than a gilded cage, designed to seal my silence, to expedite my disappearance quietly and efficiently, without a single ripple. 24 years, countless sacrifices. My strategic brilliance, once their greatest asset, was now deemed an inconvenient obstruction, discarded for the sake of a tawdry secret. But they had fundamentally miscalculated one crucial truth. A master strategist never truly concedes defeat. And sometimes, the quietest departures ignite the most explosive resurrections. The clock in Marcus Albright's office seemed to tick louder after his final, chilling pronouncement. Every second felt like a drumbeat, counting down to my professional demise. My mind, usually a fortress of calm under pressure, was a whirlwind of raw emotion. Disbelief, fury, and a cold, sharp ache of betrayal. 17 years of my life, meticulously woven into the fabric of Ascendant Holdings, now reduced to a mere transition, a neat package designed for erasure. I forced a tight smile, meeting Marcus's gaze, then shifting to Felicity's. Her smirk was barely concealed now, a flicker of triumph in her eyes. I could almost hear the echo of her purring laughter from moments ago in the lounge, a sound that would forever be etched as the soundtrack of my downfall. "Of course," I said, my voice surprisingly steady despite the tremor in my hands. "A seamless transition. That's always been my priority at Ascendant." The sarcasm was probably lost on them, buried under layers of corporate politeness. The next few hours were a blur of calculated humiliation. I sat at my own desk, the one I'd occupied for over a decade, watching Felicity's eager fingers hover over my files. I guided her through the strategic initiatives, the complex analytical models, the critical client relationships. Every explanation was a knife twisted deeper, knowing that the legacy I built was being handed over to someone utterly unprepared. Someone whose only qualification was her illicit connection to the CEO. She asked basic questions, demonstrating a profound lack of understanding that made my stomach churn. It wasn't just my career they were ending, it was potentially the company's future they were jeopardizing for a personal whim. My former team members, loyal strategists who had worked alongside me for years, drifted by my office doorway, their faces etched with confusion and concern. I offered them reassuring smiles, trying to project a strength I didn't feel. The whispers about Felicity and Marcus had circulated, of course, but now, the blatant reality of my replacement made them undeniable truths. Their silent sympathy was a small comfort, a stark contrast to the cold efficiency of Marcus and his paramour. At 4:30 p.m., a notification flashed on my screen. A system alert confirming the impending deactivation of my credentials. It felt less like a notification and more like a public execution notice. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, tempted to unleash years of accumulated data, to expose the truth of Felicity's incompetence and Marcus's blatant abuse of power. But I was a strategist, not a saboteur. My revenge, if it came, would be far more subtle, far more devastating. I began to clear my desk, a ritualistic act of severance. The awards, the framed photos of triumphant project launches, the worn copies of strategic planning texts. Each item was a tangible piece of my life at Ascendant, now being packed into a single, nondescript box. The office, once a vibrant hub of intellectual activity, now felt like a tomb, echoing with the silence of my forced departure. I remembered countless late nights, working through complex algorithms to save millions of dollars in potential losses, drafting proposals that secured billions in new revenue. All for this. As the clock edged closer to 5 p.m., a small, brightly colored sticky note appeared on the edge of my monitor. It wasn't mine. It simply read, "They underestimate you, A.K." A tiny act of defiance, a quiet message from a colleague who still believed. My heart warmed slightly. I wasn't entirely alone. The K might be Kian, a brilliant junior analyst I'd mentored, whose quiet observations often rivaled my own. The final minute arrived. With a soft click, my screen went dark, replaced by the Ascendant Holdings logo, a gleaming mountain peak, a symbol of ambition I no longer shared. My access was gone. My identity within their system erased. I stood there for a moment, the heavy box in my arms, feeling the hollow space where my professional life once was. But as I walked towards the elevator, leaving behind the gilded cage of Ascendant, a new kind of clarity began to emerge. They thought they had extinguished a fire, but they had merely scattered embers, ready to ignite a new, far more dangerous blaze. The outside air, usually a welcome reprieve from the sterile corporate climate, felt different now. It was no longer the invigorating breath of the city, but the indifferent sigh of a world that had moved on without me. I clutched the single box containing the physical remnants of my 24 years at Ascendant. The weight of it surprisingly heavy, a stark contrast to the lightness in my schedule. No more urgent meetings, no more strategic fire drills, no more late-night analyses saving the company another $1 million. Just a gaping, sudden emptiness. I made my way to a quiet cafe, miles from Ascendant's gleaming tower, a place where the scent of freshly brewed coffee offered a semblance of normalcy. My phone buzzed, a cascade of messages. Some were from concerned colleagues, discreetly reaching out with words of sympathy. Others were from headhunters, their offers arriving with an almost comical speed, as if the corporate world had a built-in alarm for high-profile departures. But none of that mattered. Not yet. My mind was still replaying Marcus's clipped words, Felicity's triumphant smirk, and the chilling echoes of their whispered conspiracy. For 8 years, even while pouring my life into Ascendant, I had secretly nurtured a side project, a passion born from a growing dissatisfaction with the rigid, often inefficient corporate structures I navigated daily. It was a digital platform, a sophisticated AI-driven strategic decision engine I called Nexus AI. I'd worked on it in the quiet hours of dawn, during weekends, turning my apartment into a clandestine lab. Nexus AI wasn't just about data. It was about intuition, pattern recognition, and predictive analytics that went beyond conventional algorithms. It was designed to anticipate market shifts, optimize resource allocation, and even forecast human behavior with uncanny accuracy. A true strategic compass. 2 years prior, I'd connected with Elias Vance, a brilliant venture technologist whom I'd met at a niche tech conference in Seattle. Elias, a few years younger than me at 49, shared my vision for Nexus AI's potential. He brought the cutting-edge AI architecture and coding prowess, complementing my deep strategic and business insights. We became an unlikely but formidable duo, 2 minds perfectly synchronized, building something truly revolutionary. He had been urging me for the last 6 months to dedicate myself fully to Nexus AI, to leave the corporate rat race behind. I'd always hesitated, clinging to the security and prestige of my role at Ascendant. Oh, the irony. Now, as I stared at the empty screen of my personal tablet, the irony was a bitter laugh in my throat. The security was an illusion, the prestige a fleeting shadow. My years of corporate loyalty had bought me nothing but a humiliating exit orchestrated by a petty CEO and his unqualified mistress. But the anger, sharp and potent, was quickly morphing into something else, a cold, focused determination. I pulled out my secure personal phone, the one Ascendant knew nothing about, and dialed Elias. He answered on the second ring, his voice bright, brimming with the energy of constant innovation. Alex, to what do I owe the pleasure? Did Ascendant finally crash and burn without you, so you're ready to embrace true freedom? He joked, unaware of the grim reality. Even better, Elias, I replied, my voice low, a controlled tremor running through it. They just gave me the golden ticket, or rather, the gilded boot, effective immediately. A stunned silence stretched across the line. They fired you? Alexandra, are you serious? After all you've done for them? Are you all right? His concern was genuine, a comforting anchor in the storm. I'm more than all right, Elias, I said, a slow, dangerous smile spreading across my lips. I'm free, and now, Nexus A. I has my undivided, absolute attention. We're no longer just building a tool, Elias. We're building a weapon, and I know exactly who its first target will be. A beat of silence, then Elias's voice, slow, contemplative, with a hint of an answering smile. Ascendant Holdings, I presume? Precisely, I affirmed, the word resonating with a newfound purpose. The game wasn't over, it had just begun, and this time I was playing for keeps, with a blueprint for retribution already forming in the depths of my strategic mind. The days following my abrupt departure from Ascendant Holdings blurred into a furious, exhilarating sprint. The initial shock and sting of betrayal, though still present, was rapidly transmuted into pure, unadulterated focus. My apartment, once a quiet retreat, was now the buzzing nerve center of Nexus AI. My coffee consumption skyrocketed, but so did my clarity. Elias Vance, my brilliant partner, was a constant, invigorating presence, his energy matching mine as we plunged headfirst into transforming our ambitious side project into a fully operational, market-ready solution. We're looking at a 48% efficiency improvement on their current data processing model, Alex, Elias announced one morning, his eyes gleaming behind his spectacles as he hunched over a holographic display. And the predictive accuracy? Off the charts. Their old system is archaic by comparison. Good, I muttered, reviewing a complex strategic algorithm. Because archaic is exactly what Marcus and Felicity will inherit. We need Nexus AI to be not just better, but undeniably superior. So superior that it makes Ascendant's existing framework look like a child's abacus. My voice was calm, but the undercurrent of steel was unmistakable. This wasn't just about proving a point. It was about demonstrating the profound cost of their short-sightedness and moral bankruptcy. We worked tirelessly, often clocking 16-hour days. Elias fine-tuned the AI's core algorithms, optimizing its learning capabilities and expanding its data integration protocols. My role was to imbue Nexus AI with real-world strategic intelligence. I fed it years of my accumulated knowledge from Ascendant. Anonymized market trends, competitor analyses, successful and failed crisis responses. I taught it to think like a seasoned strategist, to anticipate unforeseen variables, to sniff out opportunities and threats with uncanny precision. It was like pouring decades of my brainpower into a self-learning entity, making it an extension of my own strategic prowess. Our initial clients were small, niche firms, a logistics company in Dublin, a boutique financial advisor in Tokyo, a sustainable energy startup in Vancouver. They were cautious, but intrigued by our bold claims. We offered them pilot programs at a heavily discounted rate, focusing on proving Nexus AI's tangible benefits. The results were astounding. The logistics company reduced their fuel consumption by 1.5% in the first month, translating to tens of thousands of dollars in savings. The financial advisor identified undervalued assets, netting their clients an average 10% higher return. The energy startup optimized their supply chain, cutting operational costs by 2%. Word began to spread, not through traditional marketing, but through quiet, professional channels. Our reputation wasn't built on flashy ad campaigns, but on irrefutable results. One of our early success stories was with a former business partner of Ascendant Holdings, a major tech hardware manufacturer called Omnicorp. Omnicorp had recently been struggling with fluctuating supply chain costs, an issue I remembered well from my time at Ascendant. Marcus and Felicity, in their infinite wisdom, had apparently suggested a series of outdated, manual adjustments. Omnicorp just signed on for a full-year contract, Alex, Elias announced one afternoon, waving a digital agreement. They're projecting a 4.5% cost reduction in their next fiscal quarter, directly attributable to Nexus AI's recommendations. They explicitly mentioned how much more effective our solution is compared to, well, other options they'd explored recently. A slow smile spread across my face. Excellent. The ripple effect begins. Omnicorp was a known entity, a respected player in the industry. Their success with Nexus AI would inevitably catch the attention of larger firms, including, perhaps, those who once dictated my professional fate. The seeds of retribution weren't just being sown. They were beginning to sprout, strong and unyielding, fueled by cold data and a burning desire for strategic justice. While Nexus AI was flourishing, A starkly different reality was unfolding within the polished walls of Ascendant Holdings. News travels fast in the corporate world, even through layers of denial and PR spin. My former colleagues, a network I had meticulously cultivated over 2 decades, became my unwitting intelligence sources. They reached out through encrypted messages and discreet coffee meetings, their voices laced with a mix of despair and incredulity. "It's a complete mess, Alex," Javier, a former senior analyst, confided during a hurried lunch outside the financial district. His eyes, once sharp with strategic insight, now held a haunted, fatigued look. "Felicity is, well, she's a disaster. Every decision seems to be based on gut feelings or what Marcus wants to hear, not on data. We've lost 3 major clients in the last 2 months alone. That's nearly $1 billion in recurring revenue just evaporated." Sherry, my former deputy, equally disheartened, echoed his sentiments in a separate, hushed phone call. "The morale is in the basement, Alexandra. She micromanages everything, but understands nothing. Projects are stalled, talent is leaving in droves. Last week we missed a critical deadline for the Europa initiative by 5 days. Something you would have had completed a week early." She sighed heavily. "It's like the strategic compass broke the day you walked out." The news, while validating my earlier concerns about Felicity's incompetence, also filled me with a complex mix of satisfaction and genuine concern. Ascendant, despite everything, was a company I had poured my life into. To see it falter so spectacularly, driven into the ground by the very people who had discarded me, was a bittersweet symphony. The cost wasn't just my career, it was the livelihoods of hundreds, if not thousands, of dedicated employees. The operational issues extended beyond lost clients and missed deadlines. Nexus AI's market intelligence algorithms, which I now fed with public financial data and industry reports, began to flag serious internal problems at Ascendant. Supply chain bottlenecks, unusually high employee turnover rates in key departments, and plummeting stock valuations, signs that their core strategic functions were crumbling. Felicity's new division of global integration seemed to be doing anything but integrating. It was fragmenting the company from within. Around this time, rumors started circulating about Felicity's next big move. Marcus, seemingly oblivious to the chaos she was sowing, was reportedly championing her for a new, even more elevated position. Executive Vice President of Strategy. A former board member anonymously hinted in an email, clearly disgusted by the prospect. "The man is blinded. She's destroying the very foundations you built, and he's promoting her for it." The irony was thick enough to choke on. Despite Ascendant's obvious decline, Felicity was not only retaining her position, but was being rewarded for her disastrous leadership. It was a clear indication that Marcus's infatuation was overriding any semblance of business acumen or accountability. This solidified my resolve. Nexus AI wasn't just about my vindication. It was about demonstrating that true strategic intelligence, not personal bias, was the only way forward. While Ascendant floundered, Nexus AI continued its quiet conquest. Our client list grew, our revenue streams diversified, and our reputation soared. We were the solution to the very problems Ascendant was now facing. My former company, which had dismissed my strategic brilliance, was now unknowingly providing the perfect market case study for the value of what they had lost. As Ascendant Holdings continued its slow, self-inflicted decline, Nexus AI was rapidly becoming a beacon for disillusioned talent. The corporate grapevine, always buzzing, now carried stories not just of Ascendant's failures, but of our quiet successes. My network, painstakingly built over 20-plus years, became a magnet for those seeking competence and genuine innovation. One crisp autumn afternoon, while Elias and I were immersed in refining Nexus AI's predictive modeling for a new financial client, My secure messaging app pinged. It was a name I hadn't seen in nearly a year and a half, but one that instantly brought a sharp, appreciative smile to my face. Kian. Kian, the brilliant junior analyst who had left me that anonymous sticky note on my last day at Ascendant. Alex, the message read, concise and direct as always. Heard through the Whisper network you're building something interesting. Ascendant's a sinking ship. I need a lifeboat. Are you hiring? My pulse quickened. Kian wasn't just any former colleague. He was one of the sharpest young minds I'd ever mentored at Ascendant, often underutilized and overlooked by the old guard. He possessed an innate understanding of complex data structures and a knack for identifying subtle patterns, qualities that would be invaluable to Nexus AI. I immediately arranged a discreet meeting at a small, independent coffee shop on the outskirts of the tech hub, a place far removed from the corporate glitter of downtown. Kian arrived promptly, looking tired but alert. His eyes, usually bright with curiosity, held a weary resignation. "It's worse than the rumors, Alex," Kian began, barely touching his steaming mug. "Felicity is making decisions that defy all logic. Remember the Project Chimera analytics engine? The one we spent 18 months on building, designed to flag market vulnerabilities?" I nodded, remembering the countless late nights. Of course, it saved Ascendant from a major commodity market collapse 3 years ago. Well, she decided it was too complicated and opted for an intuitive assessment instead. We just lost a potential $700 million deal because she ignored its warnings about a shift in consumer demand in the Asian markets. Marcus just nodded along. Kian ran a hand through his hair, his frustration palpable. "The company is bleeding talent. Anyone with real skills is looking for the exit. We've seen a 3% attrition rate in the strategy department alone in the last 4 months." I listened, my expression neutral, but a deep sense of validation settled within me. My rage at their personal betrayal was still there, but now it was tempered by the grim satisfaction of seeing my strategic foresight confirmed, even as it cost Ascendant dearly. "Kian," I said, leaning forward, "Nexus AI is hiring, but it's not a lifeboat, it's a rocket ship. We're building the future of strategic intelligence. No corporate politics, no unqualified leadership, just pure, unadulterated innovation." I spent the next hour detailing Nexus AI's capabilities, our early successes with clients like Omnicorp, and our vision for disrupting the traditional consulting landscape. Kian's eyes, which had been dull with fatigue, began to spark with renewed interest. He asked incisive questions, immediately grasping the nuances of our AI's architecture and its market potential. "So, you're building a system that can literally predict strategic outcomes better than any human team?" he asked, a thrill in his voice. "And you want me to help scale that?" "More than that," I corrected, a glint in my eye. "We're building the weapon that will expose the incompetence of the old guard. And Ascendant Holdings, under its current leadership, is providing us with the perfect battleground to prove our superiority. Are you in?" Kian didn't hesitate. A wide, genuine smile broke through his weariness. "Absolutely, Alex. It would be an honor." As Kian joined Nexus AI, bringing his sharp intellect and invaluable first-hand insights into Ascendant's crumbling state, the pieces of my grand strategy began to fall into place with chilling precision. The storm was gathering, and Ascendant, blind and arrogant, was walking directly into its path. The integration of Kian into Nexus A. I was seamless, like adding a critical missing piece to a complex puzzle. His insights into Ascendant's internal failings, combined with my strategic foresight and Elias's technical genius, sharpened Nexus AI's focus. We weren't just building a powerful AI, We were crafting a surgical instrument capable of exposing the rot within Ascendant. Our client portfolio continued to swell, attracting more attention from the industry's elite. Nexus AI wasn't just saving companies money, it was redefining strategic planning. We were constantly refining our algorithms, adding new layers of data analysis, including a sophisticated language audit module that Elias, at my subtle suggestion, had developed. This module was designed to analyze corporate communications, proposals, and internal documents for inconsistencies, plagiarism, or even subtle shifts in strategic direction that might indicate something else. Meanwhile, intelligence from my network within Ascendant grew increasingly grim. The company was hemorrhaging talent and market share. Major investors were starting to ask difficult questions, but Marcus, blinded by his infatuation and perhaps a growing desperation, continued to deflect. Felicity, now officially the executive vice president of corporate strategy, was making headlines for all the wrong reasons. Her public appearances were marked by gaffes, her strategic presentations vague and unconvincing. One afternoon, a notification popped up on my Nexus AI dashboard. A new partnership inquiry had landed from an unexpected source. Ascendant Holdings. My breath hitched. They were coming to us. I leaned back in my chair, a slow, predatory smile spreading across my face. Elias, noticing my expression, raised an eyebrow. Good news, Alex? Did one of their remaining rivals just go belly up? Better, I replied, my voice a low hum of satisfaction. Ascendant Holdings. They've submitted a partnership inquiry. Felicity must have heard about Nexus AI through one of our mutual clients, probably Omnicorp. She's desperate. Elias whistled softly. Talk about poetic justice. So, what's the play? Do we reject them outright? Or do we bleed them dry? Neither, Elias, I said, a glint in my eye. We give them exactly what they think they want, but on our terms, we craft a pilot agreement so ironclad, so deeply embedded with our protocols, that it will make them utterly dependent on Nexus AI. We won't just be their solution, we'll become their life support. And if they ever try to pull the plug, they'll collapse. Over the next 3 weeks, I meticulously drafted the pilot agreement. Every clause was a strategic trap, every condition designed to give Nexus AI unprecedented access and control over Ascendant's operations. It included terms that would grant us significant oversight on their strategic planning and, crucially, intellectual property rights on any improvements or innovations derived from our system's analysis of their data. It was a golden leash disguised as a lifeline. One evening, as I was reviewing the preliminary strategic proposal Ascendant had submitted as part of their inquiry, ostensibly drafted by Felicity, my fingers paused. A familiar turn of phrase, a distinct strategic framework. My blood ran cold, then boiled. It was my work. Years ago, in my early days at Ascendant, I had developed a proprietary strategic model called the Adaptive Market Velocity Framework. It was complex, highly effective, and had been instrumental in several of Ascendant's biggest wins. Felicity, in her brazen arrogance, had simply copied sections of an old internal document I had authored, presenting it as her own original thought for their new strategic direction. The plagiarism was undeniable, blatant, and frankly, insulting. My initial reaction was a surge of raw fury, but then the strategist in me took over. This wasn't a setback. It was an unexpected gift, an opportunity. I immediately contacted Elias. Remember that language audit module we developed for Nexus AI? Sure, the one that flags linguistic anomalies and potential intellectual property infringements? He confirmed. It's practically a digital lie detector for documents. Why? Because, I said, a dangerous calm in my voice, we're adding a new critical clause to Ascendant's pilot agreement, a comprehensive language and originality audit of all their submitted strategic documents, with severe penalties for any discovered intellectual property violations or uncredited content. Elias was silent for a moment, then a low chuckle emanated from the speaker. "Oh, Alex, you truly are a master strategist. This isn't just a lifeline, it's a noose." "Precisely," I affirmed, the word resonating with cold satisfaction. The net was closing. Marcus and Felicity, in their hubris, were about to walk straight into it. The invitation to the final contract signing at the prestigious Leighton Grand Hotel was delivered with an almost comical formality by Ascendant's legal department. It was a grand affair, held in one of their most exclusive conference suites, precisely the kind of opulent setting Marcus favored for sealing his visionary deals. The irony was palpable. They were walking into their own meticulously crafted trap. I arrived precisely on time, my heart a steady drumbeat of anticipation rather than nerves. My attire was impeccable, a tailored charcoal suit, sharp and professional, a stark contrast to the churning emotions beneath. Elias was already there, calmly setting up his secure tablet, ensuring Nexus AI's interface was ready. Kian, ever the meticulous observer, hovered nearby, a subtle smirk playing on his lips. We were a quiet, formidable force, an unseen hand guiding the narrative. The Ascendant delegation soon arrived. Marcus Albright strode in, his usual swagger diminished by an underlying tension. His eyes, typically commanding, darted nervously around the room. Beside him, radiating an almost manic confidence, was Felicity Shaw. She wore a vibrant ruby-red dress, a bold statement that seemed designed to outshine any lingering doubts about her authority. Behind them trailed Ascendant's chief legal counsel, a couple of bewildered board members, and a few senior executives who looked distinctly uncomfortable. Marcus's eyes scanned the room, landing on Elias first. He offered a strained, professional nod. Then his gaze landed on me, his face drained of color. The practiced corporate smile vanished, replaced by a look of utter, profound shock. Felicity, noticing his sudden pallor, followed his gaze. Her own confident smirk dissolved, replaced by wide, disbelieving eyes. The vibrant ruby red seemed to dull against her ashen complexion. It was clear they had not anticipated my presence. They had expected a faceless Nexus AI representative, perhaps Elias, but certainly not the woman they had so recently and brutally discarded. "Alexandra?" Marcus managed, his voice barely a whisper. What are you doing here?" I offered a polite, almost serene smile. "Good afternoon, Marcus. Felicity, gentlemen." My voice was calm, controlled, betraying none of the deep satisfaction bubbling within me. As co-founder and chief strategic architect of Nexus AI, I thought it only fitting to be present for such a significant partnership. A stunned silence fell over the room, heavy and suffocating. The Ascendant legal counsel exchanged alarmed glances. The board members, previously looking bored, now sat bolt upright, their attention suddenly riveted. Felicity, recovering slightly, managed to force out, "This is highly irregular. You no longer have any affiliation with Ascendant." "Indeed," I countered, my eyes locking onto hers, a flicker of cold amusement in my gaze. "Which is precisely why I'm here representing Nexus AI, the company you are now seeking a partnership with. Shall we proceed?" I gestured to the meticulously prepared contract laid out on the gleaming conference table. Marcus, regaining a fraction of his composure, cleared his throat. "Of course. Let's get started." He gestured awkwardly for everyone to be seated. The atmosphere, however, remained thick with tension, a palpable unease that hung heavy over the room. Felicity avoided my gaze, her earlier triumph completely evaporated, replaced by a nervous fidgeting with her pen. As the legal teams droned through the preamble, I let my gaze sweep over the ascendant executives, the board members. They were all witnesses to this slow-motion train wreck. Their discomfort was a small victory, but it was just the beginning. The real performance was yet to come. The room, initially buzzing with nervous energy, settled into a strained silence as the contract review began. Elias, with Kian providing silent support, took the lead for Nexus AI, calmly navigating the legal jargon. I watched Marcus and Felicity, their faces a study in barely contained panic. The earlier confidence of Felicity had completely evaporated, replaced by a cold dread that mirrored Marcus's own palpable discomfort. The tension ratcheted up when we reached the clause concerning the comprehensive language and originality audit of all submitted strategic documents. Felicity visibly stiffened. Marcus, who seemed to have only a superficial understanding of the agreement's intricate details, glanced at her, a flicker of confusion in his eyes. He clearly hadn't grasped the full implications of what he was signing. "Just a standard due diligence clause, Mr. Albright," Elias stated smoothly, his voice betraying nothing. "Ensures the integrity of all data and strategic frameworks on which Nexus AI will base its recommendations." One of Ascendant's board members, a shrewd woman named Mrs. Davies, who had always respected my work, spoke up. "This seems quite stringent. Are there similar precedents in other high-value partnerships, Mr. Vance?" "Indeed, Mrs. Davies," Elias replied, gesturing to a projection of industry standards. "In the age of advanced AI, data integrity is paramount. Any inconsistencies, even unintentional, could compromise the predictive accuracy of the system, leading to significant financial repercussions. Our system is designed to detect such anomalies with a 99% accuracy rate." Felicity swallowed hard. Her gaze darted to Marcus, then back to the contract. The color had completely drained from her face. She knew what this meant. She knew what I knew. Then came the moment I had waited for. As the lawyers moved to the next section, Mrs. Davies, seemingly out of nowhere, turned to Marcus. "Marshall," she began, using his more familiar first name, her voice gentle but firm. "While we're on the topic of strategic integrity, I'm still unclear on why Ms. Thorne is no longer with our firm. Her departure was quite sudden, and her expertise was, to my knowledge, unparalleled." The question hung in the air, a perfectly timed grenade. Marcus spluttered, his composure completely shattering. "Well, Mrs. Davies, it was a mutual separation, a change in strategic direction, as I informed the board." He shot a desperate, pleading look at me. I met his gaze, my eyes cold and unwavering. Then, I turned to Mrs. Davies, my voice clear and precise, every word a hammer blow. "Mrs. Davies, I was asked to train Ms. Shaw for a senior role at Ascendant. I expressed my professional concerns about her qualifications, stating that I believed the position required a deeper understanding of global macroeconomic trends and complex financial modeling, which were not evident in her professional background." I paused, letting the implications sink in. Shortly thereafter, I was informed my employment was terminated due to a change in strategic leadership. A decision, I now realize, that had less to do with strategy and more to do with personal preferences. The silence that followed was deafening. The board members exchanged furious whispers. Felicity's face was now crimson, her hands trembling. Marcus, utterly exposed, looked like a hunted animal. The hushed rumors, the whispers of their affair, suddenly gained a terrifying public legitimacy. Mrs. Davies's eyes, sharp and intelligent, moved from me to Felicity, then to Marcus. The truth was laid bare. She simply nodded, a slow, knowing acknowledgement. "I see," she said, the two simple words carrying the weight of 1,000 judgments. The rest of the meeting was a formality. The contract was signed, giving Nexus AI unprecedented access and influence. Marcus, shell-shocked and defeated, signed mechanically. Felicity, visibly shaken, could barely hold her pen steady. The gilded cage I had once found myself in was now a trap of their own making, and they had willingly walked into it. The language audit clause, the very tool I designed to catch Felicity's plagiarism, now hung over them like the sword of Damocles. Their secret was exposed, their professional standing annihilated. The meeting concluded with a strained, awkward handshake. Marcus, his face a mask of humiliation, avoided my gaze as he signed the final documents, effectively ceding significant control of Ascendant's strategic future to Nexus AI. Felicity, utterly defeated, hurried out of the room, her ruby dress now seeming like a cruel joke, a stark contrast to her shattered composure. Their secret was out, their professional reputations irrevocably tarnished, all thanks to a carefully laid trap sprung by the woman they had so callously underestimated. I stayed behind for a moment, letting the weight of the moment settle. Elias clapped me on the shoulder, a proud smile on his face. "Remarkable, Alex. Absolutely remarkable. You just reclaimed your legacy, and then some." Kian, ever quiet, offered a respectful nod, his eyes gleaming with admiration. As I walked out of the Leighton Grand, the city lights, which had once twinkled like complicit eyes, now seemed to sparkle in celebration. The burden of betrayal had lifted, replaced by the exhilarating lightness of vindication. But this wasn't just about personal revenge. It was about demonstrating that true merit and strategic brilliance would always prevail over petty politics and illicit affairs. The fallout at Ascendant Holdings was swift and brutal. The language audit, which was an inherent part of Nexus AI's initial integration, immediately flagged Felicity's extensive plagiarism within the strategic proposals she had submitted. The board, now fully aware of the true nature of Marcus's decisions and Felicity's lack of qualifications, acted decisively. Felicity Shaw was publicly dismissed from Ascendant Holdings within the 72 hours of the contract signing. Her career, built on a foundation of deceit and a secret relationship, crumbled spectacularly. She became a pariah in the corporate world, her name synonymous with incompetence and scandal. The once sought-after socialite and strategic visionary vanished from the public eye, her dreams of executive power turning to ash. Marcus Albright's reign as CEO of Ascendant Holdings also came to an abrupt end. Faced with irrefutable evidence of gross misconduct, dereliction of duty, and the disastrous financial performance under Felicity's guidance, which Nexus AI's reports now starkly highlighted, the board initiated an immediate vote of no confidence. Within a single week, Marcus was forced to resign, stripped of his power, his prestige, and his carefully constructed image. He faded into obscurity, a cautionary tale of a leader who prioritized personal gratification over corporate responsibility. Ascendant Holdings, teetering on the brink of collapse, desperately needed a new direction. With Nexus AI now deeply integrated into their strategic operations, providing the clarity and direction they so sorely lacked, the company slowly began the arduous process of rebuilding. Nexus AI became indispensable, its AI-driven insights guiding every major decision, from rebuilding client trust to streamlining internal processes. It was the strategic brain that Ascendant had lost, now returned to them, but as an external controlling force. As for me, Alexandra Thorne. Nexus AI blossomed into a global leader in strategic AI. We expanded rapidly, our success stories becoming legendary in the industry. My name, once briefly tarnished by Ascendant's dismissal, was now synonymous with innovation, integrity, and unparalleled strategic genius. I received numerous offers to lead major corporations, to take on CEO roles with full board backing, an acknowledgement of my reclaimed power and reputation. I often reflect on that day at the Leighton Grand. They thought they had extinguished a flame, but all they did was provide the kindling for a wildfire. The quiet departure wasn't an end. It was the genesis of a far grander strategy, a journey from betrayal to ultimate triumph. The true victory wasn't just in seeing justice served, but in proving that integrity, intellect, and relentless determination can always forge a path, even from the ashes of betrayal, to a future brighter than anyone could have imagined. Following Alexandra's intense journey, I believe we've all felt a great deal. This isn't just a sweet revenge story. It's a mirror reflecting what we might encounter in our own work and lives. Thank you so much for tuning in and listening to Alexandra Thorne's complete story. I hope her journey brought you valuable emotions and reflections. Don't forget to hit subscribe, leave a comment to share your thoughts on the story, and please keep following so you don't miss my upcoming captivating tales.